Good evening and welcome to the Nerds Nite podcast. As always, I'm Kid Thunder DJ, joined by
Fire 47.
Yep, Cherie is tired, so she's in bed. She's got homework, so she just didn't quite have the wherewithal to make it tonight. But anyway, as always, just want to give shout outs to the Real Spoilers guys, especially Kevin, who actually managed to come out and see us last weekend at the Toyman Toy show. So it was cool to actually get to meet Kevin, as well as Shamrock's Pub and Grill and Bodox Games down in Arnold, Missouri. So just want to say thanks to those guys. And
was that your first time meeting Kevin?
Yeah, in person, yeah.
Cool.
He's a nice guy.
You've met some of the others, haven't you?
Actually, no, I haven't met any of the Real Spoilers guys in person. I just knew Tom from
I thought you met him
from the Talk STL stuff. So yeah, he's the first one I've actually gotten to meet in person, which still a cool. Good guy. All right, so
it seems like we made a fan out of him for the toy shows.
There you go. All right, so on tonight's show, we'll recap the toy show and some of the fun I got to have at Fireheart 47's expense, and what we had to do to even get out of that place. We're going to do a couple game reviews. We've actually got a lot of games to review over the coming weeks. Obviously, the summer lull is over, and we've been getting our hands on new games. And I was going
to say, between the summer lull finally ending and a new path opening up, so to speak.
Right. We did pick up a new system, and we'll go into detail about that. There's even a couple games I've already traded in that I'll go ahead and do sort of a quick review on, and we'll go from there. So, also Marvel vs. Capcom review and a few others. So we'll get to that in a moment. We'll also look back on some TV news that's happened since then, such as BoJack Horseman. We'll recap the episode 2 of this last season. HBO is greenlighting a series based on a very popular, but maybe not so well done in the movie world, depending on who you ask, graphic novel set. And also want to talk about some rather interesting developments in the wrestling world, but not necessarily in the ring, but more in the internet wrestling community. And we'll get to all that. So first, let's jump into the game reviews. So before we get to the main ones, I do want to kind of do sort of an honorable mention on a couple games I picked up over the summer, Fortnite and Agents of Chaos. Or Mayhem or whatever it was. Agents of Mayhem or Chaos was good, but slow. Like, for as phonetic and as action, crazy action movie-like as they were driving it to be, it was a lot of, let's just throw wave after wave of enemy you can easily defeat with your special move.
So
bad dialogue and very stiff. I mean, if they would have marketed it as like they were all action figures and you were playing with action figures, it would have been great. But they were, they were all supposed to be these live characters, and even the characters that are supposed to be quick and whose abilities are built around that just felt very lumbering.
So I never really heard anything about this game up until it literally just came out.
Yeah, it wasn't.
What's it really about?
I never looked basically, into it. It's like I said, you're a group of basically mercenaries, and you're doing
almost like an Overwatch sense where everyone's got like specific abilities. And you're fighting waves?
Yeah, but it's not.
I mean,
it's not multiplayer based.
It's not like multiplayer. I'm not.
Right,
I guess
but
it's Overwatch just in terms of the
It's
heroes.
a lot like a more cartoony version of a Mercenaries or Grand Theft Auto, but it wasn't that good of a game in my opinion. And Fortnite was fun, and I guess technically it's in just more of an expanded beta. But it's supposed to be multiplayer dungeon or defense building to stop waves and waves after enemies. But I learned pretty quickly that even though you're playing with people on your team, there's not really working together. You're just basically waiting for someone to get the necessary goals first, and then it doesn't really matter if you're doing anything else with them. You just move on to the next thing. There's no reason to force teamwork. So a lot of people just wind up going into business in themselves, and it still works. And that's
everything I've heard from that game definitely seems it's more of a play with friends game as opposed to just play with randos online.
Right. It looks more like this could have been a great opportunity to bring back some of that great couch player or couch multiplayer, and they obviously just went the more what they feel probably was safe road of.
Though that game's been getting a lot of interesting news lately because it did that, I think, Battle Royale mode that's essentially an PUBG-inspired mode, inspired by PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, which is it's basically 64 players get dropped into a map and collect loot and kind of be the last one to survive. It's very much like your Hunger Games Battle Royale-esque shows.
Okay. Well, we'll look into it.
And apparently Fortnite's now got a mode like it.
Well, we'll look into it. We still have a copy of that, so we'll look into that and maybe give you a better report. But let's get on to a couple games. One I found good overall, and I kind of think it's one of those examples of fanboys bitching too much, and one we really love.
Oh, yeah.
So let's start with the one that's good, and that's Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Finally came out within the last time we talked to you. Some big changes overall. Like they've actually tried to give it a more cinematic-based story. They also dropped it down to 2 and 2 for the fighting, which everybody's like, oh my god, that's not what the series is built on. I'm like,
well, that was the original game, right?
Yeah, I'm like, well, if you actually count all of the Capcom Marvel fighters and not just Marvel vs. Capcom, then yes, there's been a lot of games that have only been 2 on 2, and they've either had a third person who was just support only or just 2 on 2. So I didn't really care about that because to me, battles can go on a little too long when it's 3 on 3. Yeah, if you get 6 slow characters, you're in for a slog. Yeah. So it's
running down the clock.
Right, it's better this way. And I mean, all in all, the story was okay. It's somewhere above the story of MKX, Injustice 2, and somewhere below MKX. So, draw your own conclusion in all of those cinematic fighting game world stories. Way above Tekken 7's story.
That I can agree with. Tekken 7's story. I rewatched someone play it, and I was like, it was so much more abysmal than I actually thought it was.
Right.
Playing through it wasn't so bad.
Well, because you had something to do.
Right, but watching someone play it, I was like, wow. Yeah. The narrator couldn't be more deadpan.
Now, the story is a little bit goofy in this one, obviously, because they've advertised the hell out of it. Ultron Sigma is this fusion of Ultron and Sigma. And, of course, certain tropes stayed the same. Like, if you go through arcade or even in the story mode, they still find a way for Ultron Sigma to have a big hangs off the end of side of the level, Galactus or Onslaught style fight like they've had in the past. The dialogue is hackney.
I think I saw that one. It looked kind of. I think I saw that final form. It looked kind of dorky, dumb.
But now
like the giant face.
Now there's some spoiler alerts here, but one of the most interesting elements was Thanos' involvement in the story, and clearly setting him up for the next game. But how they did it was great because you actually got the current story completely wrapped up, a great explanation for why Marvel and Capcom people fight, and a great where we're going from here. And if they can stick the landing on the next game and improve on what they've started, it should be really good. So definitely, I think overall it's worth the check out. I mean, we're just in the era of paying more to get a full game. So I know some people are going to complain, well, they could have put more people who showed up in the background. I'm sure most of them are going to be available through the season pass or whatever, but that's the world we live in. And the first time you paid for that, you became part of the problem. So I'm not gonna score against them for doing what has been a proven business model. So anyway, There's that one. Now, one we just got yesterday. Yeah.
Played it.
That necessitated 2 hours, Friday.
2 hours into 3 a.m.
Right.
I think.
Right. Which necessitated us actually purchasing an Xbox One. Now, truth be told, when I found out that the PlayStation 4 Pro only streamed in 4K, I kind of got pissed and really started saying, okay, well, I want a 4K Blu-ray player because I have a 4K TV, and I noticed the difference in upscaled versus just what the stream did. So it was definitely worth having the better way to play it. But, 4K Blu-ray players are not cheap. So I was like, well, I'm kind of taking the same excuse for the PS2 and just applying it to the Xbox. It's the most competitive player on the market. And since there are a few exclusive games out there, then it'll be worth taking a look at.
Right.
And the best thing was Kevin, again, from the Real Spoilers and Review STL, had shared their review of this game called
Cuphead.
Right. And I had heard about it a while ago, but as soon as I saw it was PC and Xbox One, it kind of fell off my radar.
Yeah, and it took a while to come out, too. This was back in, 2014.
Which is funny, because this, I think, also started as, maybe not crowdfunded, but this is a very independent studio.
Definitely. The reason it took so long is obviously, I mean, if you've seen anything of the game, it's hand-drawn, early 1930s style, like Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie style cartoon antics.
Right.
It's
yes.
how its visuals
some
are
of the
designed
best
after.
visuals for a game, because there's been tons of games that try to capture that comic strip or animated feel, and they do okay. I mean, it's so weird to
Comic
think.
Zone, Beautiful Joe.
Comic Zone wasn't that good. Beautiful Joe was good because it had the high dynamic colors, and then you had
I mean, that was just later in the world.
A lot of people settled for cell shading as being the go-to.
Yeah,
because cell shaded produced that very animated look, especially if you use
Along
that color and style on a 2D model plane versus a 3 or a 2.5D, especially.
Yeah, it works.
But this one is definitely hand drawn style, and it's really well done. But let's talk about the best way I can describe this game. You take the phonetic sort of crazy weapon and run and gunness of Gunstar Heroes. Classic. And you take we're going to make you die over and over and over again mentality of the Soul series games like Demon Souls or whatever.
I'd actually more say Contra just to be a little bit more.
Or yes, if you want a more arcade feel, Contra, and you have this game. And the story's really cute. You're these two brothers who have heads that are cups. There's Cuphead and Mugman, and they are gamblers in this building gambling, and of course they rack up a huge win at the craps table, and then the devil makes them a bet, and they wind up snake eyesing out, and rather than having their souls taken, they basically agree to become bounty hunters for contracted souls, and then you fight all these really zany bad guys. And there's two basic level styles. There's boss fights, for lack of a better term, and there's run and gun levels where you earn coins up to 5. Oh my lord! They definitely stuck the 1930s feeling of money, working your ass off for 5 coins, and then oh my god, that's actually enough to buy good stuff. But
buy one good upgrade, and it's something I very much enjoy because you buy permanent upgrades that give you either like different shooting types, some boosts to like your health or auto jumps.
Or auto parry, because parry is a big deal for building up your cards to either unleash your specials or eventually get your super move, which we got, or your super finisher. So, really interesting game, and definitely can't recommend it highly enough. We're 16% and we've only gotten about 3 bosses beaten, 1 run and gun stage.
So this game will hand you your
backside
Ash
over and over again. And, there's 2 game types that do this. There's the people that do it because the game's broken, or they purposefully ratchet up the difficulty, but not enough fun. Here's a challenge way, but just in we're going to put you in a position to lose. This game doesn't do that. If you're smart, you can follow the patterns. You can learn and adapt. The game learns and adapts a little bit too, but you can learn and adapt enough that with enough time and play, you will get through it. It's not based on stupid pixel perfect jumps. It's not based on anything other than learning, and in a very weird way, even though the game creates this feel that makes you want to rush, some levels it's better.
It will screw you for that.
Yeah, some levels it is better, especially the run and gun levels. Take your time.
Yeah. This is definitely a good game for like couch multiplayer, or even just like stream multiplayer with like some friends online with the voice chat. This is such a fun, hectic ride, and you get such a thrill when you do beat the bosses and win the stages. Because like we were screaming at it like 2 a.m. like, yes, we did it.
Yeah. That moment when you finally see the knockout thing flash across the screen, like, yes, it's over. And then you realize, oh no, we got to go do it again. And by the way, just winning the boss fights don't get you any coins. So then you got to find a run and gun level, which you can't replay for coins and try to earn more because, oh my God, you just didn't have the right power up. It's, in a lot of weird ways, sometimes when you win, if you saw the second episode, or well, I guess technically the first actual episode of the Rick and Morty season, where they're sitting in the spaceship and then all of a sudden they just both have a meltdown.
They just start crying.
Right, like, I was not in control at all. Do you have any idea how lucky we were that were? That is...
Look at my hands. Look at my hands.
Right. That is literally this game in a nutshell, so...
Yeah. This minor detail is I just love how they don't show you the health bars.
Right. So on Xbox Live, if you want to add us, Fireheart is Max Doom 123?
213.
Or 213, whatever.
It's an old one. I'm probably going to change it at some point.
Yes, he created this when he was like 6, and I wouldn't help him pick a name. So
6 is not that
No,
This was before the era of the Fire 47 handle.
He was like, still quite young.
Quite young, sure, but it was like the Xbox wasn't even out when I was 6. First of all,
I know that was more of a joke, but anyway. And I'm of course Demon DJ Thunder, so you can find us there. So this is obviously for me predates Kid Thunder DJ as the active name I would use. So anyway, just wanted to kind of talk about those games.
Between both.
Yeah, sometimes.
Anyway.
So the toy show was last Sunday.
It was.
It was a lot of fun. We made some good money, and oh my lord, we burnt that place down in some ways too. First, without Zavina here anymore, we lost our second vehicle that we were using.
Yeah,
which we sorely missed.
That made getting there just a pain too.
So I mean, yeah, we have the car packed to the gills, the SUV to get in there.
And we kind of like messed up the initial packing trying to.
Because we just didn't really go back through and pull things out.
I think initially we forgot we didn't have that extra vehicle, so we kind of got comfortable with it, and then kind of repacked it wrong when we got it in. But we got it in, got there,
got unloaded. Actually got set up on time for a change. Like we were done with like 10 minutes to spare. So
either 10 minutes to spare or 10 minutes after. Either way, we did good.
Right. And making deals all day with the other vendors, which is always a bonus for me because that's how I get a lot of my stuff. Which was also the big joke later for Fireheart over there. Having a stroke because table across from us, I end up buying a lot of their stuff off of them because it's a guy who has a shop somewhere who brings a lot of his sort of clearance stuff. And the best thing is everything I bought off of him I've sold for a good profit because it's not like he's bringing junk; he's just bringing a lot of overflow.
Right.
So of course we barely got stuff in the door to the point where when we finally realized, oh no, we're not only out of boxes, we're going to be out of car space. I bulk sold a bunch of box NES games to one of our vendor friends.
Yeah,
was still burying Fireheart under shelves in the front seat to get out of there.
Like we bought out a table, and when you said that, I was just like, it didn't hit me that you were serious,
right?
Until you start stacking stuff, and I see their tables half cleared as you move them over. I was like, wait, you were serious?
Yes, I was.
That was a good time. It's like we kind of joked back and forth about it, but it was actually a lot of fun.
It was.
The biggest downer for me personally was you ended up selling Fire Emblem, and I was like, I really wanted to get to play that.
And then I had a guy bought a bunch of wrestling figures off me. I gave him this lunchbox that I forgot that to just make it easier to travel, I packed a Pokemon game down in. So he's like, oh, that dude's going to eventually open up that lunchbox to display it and be like, oh, what's this? Free Pokemon game, but I didn't pay that much for it, so I don't care.
Oh, was it like a Game Boy Advance?
No, it was a DS one. It was Pokemon Black, so yeah.
Not bad.
I paid the guy like $15 for it, and you know what? If giving up that to a guy who bought over $100 worth of figures off of me.
Oh, that was right. That was awesome.
Yeah, that dude, Dustin, I think his name was, can enjoy that game. Or he can bring it back. Hopefully he hears this and goes, oh my God, it's in there. I'll bring it back to the next toy show in November. Which, pull up the Toyman Toy Show page. Let's let them know when that next show is.
November 5th.
November 5th. Okay. I plead the 5th of November.
Anyway. Yeah, that's going to be a busy weekend because I think I mentioned this before, but it looks like I'm going to be joining some local Rooster Teeth fans here in the St. Louis area for Extra Life.
Oh, there you go. That should be interesting.
On November 4th, that Saturday, we're going to do a 12-hour stream from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
You do that.
To raise money for the Extra Life donation stream, which is really cool.
I'm going to just take a nap that day. Doing that concert and then doing the show. Man,
get me down there.
We were done by halfway through the toy show day.
Yeah, that one.
We were roached
last
out.
week hurt, but this one should be fine.
So anyway, I just want to talk about the toy show just to remind you guys what you're missing. Pictures should be up on Facebook.com/NerdsNight. We've also been revamping the blog and actually the Nerds Night page as a whole. I know we've been promising it for a while, but we've actually done work. With the provider we use, since we're not self-hosting our website, the way we're going to do our individual blogs is this. You go to our individual blog pages. It's still the same blog, but we're able to go through and sort of create a blog element that shows just specifically tagged things. So we're tagging all of our own individual blogs. And then when you go to our pages at nerdsatnight.com/blogs, you'll be able to see, Shuddery's blogs, Fireheart 47's blogs for the few stories he's wrote and maybe ones he'll do in the future. I'm going to take some of the content I had wrote to do future bonus stages because part of the reason we just haven't been active on YouTube is A, it's very time consuming and right now we just haven't had the time. and B, and this will come up later on with some other news, there's just been a lot of changes there that have really sort of made it conducive to not being worth our time. Yeah. And after we get through the BoJack Horseman review for episode 2, we'll swing back to that, because this isn't going to be a very long show tonight. We just wanted to get something out because it had been over a week and a half. I think actually by this point 2 weeks since we spoke to you. So we wanted to get something out there for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, BoJack Horseman season 4 episode 2. I had notes on what the episode title was, but I'm just going to kind of, again, there's going to be some spoilers, so tune out for the next couple of minutes if you haven't seen it, but it's been out for a while. Yeah, you haven't even watched it. But the big thing about this episode is this is the introduction of Hollyhock. Hollyhock with her 8 last names, because she's the adopted daughter of 8 gay men in a committed polyamorous relationship, so she's got all 8 of their last names.
Jesus.
You know, yeah. To just more BoJack fun, which is, you know, hilarious in and of itself. This episode also focuses a lot on Todd. This is probably the best Todd episode ever, because it really kind of shows how he winds up in all these crazy adventures and being thought of as they put it, one of the characters puts it, the most giving man in the world. Really great episode if you want to sort of see the deconstruction of, hey, here's this character who's always in crazy adventures. Well, how and how did this all tie together? And sort of a lot of ways the aftermath of some of the adventures he gets into and the people he meets and deals with. This is a really great episode for that. So, and they do a great job watching it again to catch up on introducing Hollyhock to very much convince you that BoJack's her father, because she does a lot of his mannerisms and attitudes about things. And the best thing of all is, you know, not to spoil too much, what we find out later on in this season really makes going back and rewatching her introduction that much more interesting and well played when you consider how well they were able to sort of get you to think they were going to go down a very slippery slope road with basically what is a sitcom, you know, with the whole long lost kid trope. So great episode, definitely worth watching, especially if you like the Todd character, because it's a great further fleshing out for him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of I might have this as a topic for next week, but kind of just something about it just kind of reminded me. I saw an interesting video for Rick and Morty about top 10 examples of continuity. And there were some really cool little things in there, like little visual things, like a minor one that I'll just kind of throw out.
Well, yeah, there's great things about continuity in both those shows. Because like in BoJack Horseman, from the first season, once the D for the Hollywood sign gets lost, every episode since, whenever they refer to Hollywood, which is where the show takes place, they always call it Hollywoo.
Nice.
So, I mean, and there's a lot of other things, like Todd has a Latin Kings on one arm and Aryan Brotherhood on the other tattoo from the episode he was in prison and was being courted by both gangs. So, both that show, I would think the 3 best shows for character continuity are Rick and Morty, BoJack Horseman, and Archer. Yeah.
Definitely. I might go into the more examples on that.
Let's do that next
week.
Show,
That'll be an interesting one.
Because I want to kind of get to this. So the big news from the HBO side is they're green lighting a Watchmen series. Now, if y'all remember, back in 2009, Zack Snyder actually had one of his last few good movies and doing a very well done adaptation of it. Damon Lindelof is the co-creator of Lost and Leftovers, has been working really hard to get this off the ground, and now HBO has made it official. So it's basically it looks like it's going to take place during the events of the novel. At first, when this was first rumored, I had heard it was going to be a prequel series, which would have been more interesting, especially if, you know, they would have did something that falls in the era between the Minutemen and the Watchmen.
Right.
You know, or right after the Keene Act took effect and what all of the Watchmen were doing during that time. So
yeah, this one definitely has a lot of potential. I'm not that knowledgeable on the Watchmen series. I've seen the movie, the Zack Snyder one, a number of times. It's definitely a very interesting watch, but there's a lot of, I think, like hidden backstory and lore.
There's a lot of backstory.
You might need to be aware of.
The Ultimate Edition Blu-ray, which, speaking of, we'll get to that in a minute, about some of the pros and cons of the Xbox One versus the PS4, because that was a movie I bought trying to figure out if my PS4 had an Ultra 4K Blu-ray drive, which it didn't, which I was finally able to watch in that mode on my 4K TV on my Xbox One, and it is great. But there, between the Tales of the Black Freighter, which they could go into, some of the rich depth of characters' backstories and how they interlace, they could explore some things that have been mentioned by both Givens and Moore that they felt were integral to the characters. So, and it would be interesting to see if maybe instead of doing this whole framing of Dr. Manhattan like they did in the film, if they go back to the book's original idea that it was a genetically engineered alien creature that Ozymandias had developed, and maybe you see some of the aftermath of that too. So I'm definitely going to be interested in watching it.
I think the article said it wasn't going to be related, right?
Right. It's not going to be directly related to Zack Snyder's work. So
yeah, there's a lot of potential this could work as well.
Hopefully, in HBO with Game of Thrones and other big shows like this, they've shown they've got the capability of doing the work and doing the proper adaptations. So that's going to be a show definitely I might be willing to get me back into paying for HBO Go. So anyway, our last... so that all ties into the Ultra Blu-ray I bought. Almost forgot about this. So here are some of the just PlayStation Pro versus the Xbox One S that has the the 4K Ultra Blu-ray drive, the 1 terabyte. Here's some of the big differences I noticed. One, if you're talking about just cleanliness and easy intuitiveness of the UI, you got to give it to PlayStation.
Yeah.
The Xbox UI is clunky. It's overloaded.
It's laggy.
It's laggy, and it very much reminds me of like a Windows 8 desktop.
Right. It seems like they went for that style. There are a lot of just little add windows and boxes that are kind of annoying to sift through. They don't really have any sort of
merit.
Sorting.
You can't really. I
was going to say there was no sorting in the store, and that was a big pain.
Now here's another thing. As far as sort of out of the box, ready to go-ness, you got to kind of give it to PlayStation, and here's why. If you're trying to record a game, if you're trying to then upload that record, a lot of that stuff is native already to the PlayStation. Right, even playing the Blu-ray required downloading an app through the Microsoft App Store, which was just a pain in the ass. So yeah, that's another one. But the stuff does seem to be more feature rich on the Xbox side.
Right, like if for an ease of use type thing, the PS4 has it because you can just hit the share button that they built the system originally to do, and you got it right there. You can select your time and then upload it straight to Facebook, Twitter, wherever.
Yeah, that was something else we noticed is
we couldn't find a Facebook.
Yeah. I'm sure again with all the customability we go through there and we start messing with it, we will. But it was only like saving it to OneDrive, saving it to your Xbox Live wall or Twitter, which is fine. We have Twitter at Nerds at Night and ITE is a thing, but it's just at the end of the day is like really
there's no
way to connect to the largest social media platform in the world. Okay, kind of made Xbox look a little bushy. Now here's where Xbox gets some props. One, switching it to 4K was an automatic detection and setup process on the system. Setting the Xbox 4 Pro to PlayStation 4 Pro to 4K was a 2-hour ordeal of searching through help documents until we figured out the exact goofy setup we needed to make it work.
Yeah.
So 3 seconds and you're off versus 2 hours. Got to give this one to Xbox.
Yeah, that definitely was on Xbox's
also,
credit,
and this is going to be a big deal, backwards compatibility. I had an Xbox 360 years ago. I had purchased games through my gamer tag. The backwards compatible versions of those games were right there, right in the game section, ready to download.
Yeah.
So it was
I think one of our first games we booted up, Alien Hominid.
Right. It was kind of nice to have about 12 games ready to download and be ready to go just by rebuying the system. Wasn't quite as capable of doing that with
the PS4.
With the PS4.
Just in general, like the stores are separate, so if you made any purchases on the PS3, you won't
unless
have
they were cross-buy, you were done.
Right, and that's
so yeah, that was
a
definitely
bit of a hassle.
Yeah, so definitely nice. So all in all, I'd have to say, obviously, I'm gonna probably always default to PS4, but I'm glad I picked up the Xbox. I'm glad I've got something that's more media center friendly for the type of movies I like to watch, and we'll keep you posted if we discover any other big reasons to make the jump.
Yeah.
Hopefully this one won't die like the 3 Xbox 360s I had that died, but hey, gotta take the chance.
Yeah. Overall, they're both definitely quality systems overall, and honestly, the best road is getting both.
Right. But, we know not everybody can do that. But I want to talk about our last topic tonight, and it's, it's a little simple one. We'll probably be quick, get out of here. Like the teacher always said, we'll let you out early, and then, of course, early ends up being 5 minutes, but you never know.
Yeah, this is a little bit of some sad news, I think, to be honest.
Last week.
Yeah, about.
Or actually, no, it's been a little longer than that. It was right after, news broke not long after our last show. What Culture on their Twitter and Facebook page puts out a note. Adam Blampier, Ross Tweddle, Adam Pacitti, Sam Driver, and Jack King all were going to be leaving in the coming weeks to focus, as they put it, on other projects.
Right.
So, it happens. And the reason why I bring this up is this. YouTube, in the last year, I think we can all agree, has become something of a shell of its former self.
Absolutely.
Between classifying whole industries as unfavorable for the action of a fringe few. Now, if you have under 1,000 followers, you're no longer able to monetize videos, which is weird because, that defeats the purpose of why they monetized videos. Because if it's a viral video, then basically they now get, every time somebody takes a funny video of an animal or their friend doing something stupid and gets a ton of likes on the video and
Dustin,
watches.
Hear me out. Sketch idea. No.
I'm too tired for this. They lose that revenue, and that's really sort of a shitty thing. And for me to curse on this show, that's actually pretty telling for them to do, because that used to be the onus for people to keep putting videos up. Oh my God, I clicked monetize on a goof and this thing went viral and 1.5 million people have watched, and now I'm not, I got a check coming. Maybe I can do this again. And then, YouTube gets free content. So we'll have to see how well that plays out. And we say all this because there's also the other side, just of people coming out of the woodwork who are former writers for What Culture, going on and on and on about how terrible they were. People posting Glassdoor.com reviews, which is sort of a aggregate site for reviewing companies to work for.
Yeah, I saw talking about an entire tweet chain by this one person, right, about his experiences there.
Right, how terrible they are and how much they're a scam. So
I mean, it's obviously some of those might be overblown in their explanations, but I feel like in some manner there's probably some truth hidden there.
When it comes to places to work for, especially in a creative environment where there's smoke, there's fire. If you get enough people saying, hey, wait a minute, this is a scam, they're strip mining for content, they're going to do everything they can not to pay you your share, some of that is true, or winds up being true. Now, here's the reason to tie it all back in with the guy specifically. A lot of us out there at times kind of forget that no matter how sort of low budget, not to say What Culture ever looked low budget, but or goofy or one-man show, the show or a channel may look, a lot of these channels are owned by media companies.
Right, especially
What Culture is owned by a large media company that owns several magazines in the UK.
Rooster Teeth is owned by Fullscreen.
Right, so there's... But in a lot of people's eyes, those were the guys who started the channel. And really, no, What Culture as a company and as a YouTube channel existed before 2015 when any of them came on board. In fact, Adam Pacitti was famous for being unemployed in the UK and using the last bit of his money to take out a billboard to advertise that he was looking for a job. So we don't always think about everything that goes into producing content. And it's just sort of a sobering reminder that as time has gone on, YouTube is becoming sort of the indie scene of television networks, to equate it to wrestling, where there's not a lot of people really watching over these developers' shoulders. There's not a lot of people really regulating things. And as YouTube does more and more to protect itself as a member of one of the largest companies in the world, that's going to come across as them trying to scam people, which they might be. And it kind of leaves us all wondering, well, what happens to these guys? And how do they handle, okay, I produced a bunch of content for you under the agreement that I get this percentage of this ad rev, but well, the YouTube decided they're not paying ad rev for this anymore. What do we do? And maybe it leads to a second wave of independentism within it. I know one of the things that we have as sort of an update to this story is that the What Culture guys have apparently formed an LLC called Cultaholics and have been putting up this big C logo with a number inside. At first we thought it was called like C5, but then we figured out every week that's gone by they repost the picture but with a lower number. I think now they're down to 3 or 2. And so obviously they're doing their own channel of some sort or something along those lines soon.
So yeah, it seems like they've recollected themselves and are kind of...
But then again, it's like,
things.
What worries me is, can you really do that anymore? Now, all these guys are smart, and when I do mean smart, I mean Jack King.
I think the biggest thing for Woke Culture, I think that kind of like helped build its popularity.
Were those guys?
Like, it was definitely the personalities.
Nobody cared about What Culture before the Wrestling Channel took off, and it was almost entirely King Ross being the goofy over-the-top guy. You had Jack King and his sort of getting involved with the Adam versus Adam stuff and being the perfect, they called him Jack the Jobber for a reason. He was the perfect sort of jobber character on a make-believe wrestling thing that was happening within wrestling talk. And
right.
And just the stupid stuff they did that kept them going. And you also have to ask, how much of that do they own? If they start this new channel, can we see Adam versus Adam? Could they?
Obviously they can't copyright just like a video category.
No, but
or style. But obviously if you can rebrand it or rename it,
right?
And it's just still them doing their same thing. There's nothing they can stop.
Right, Brandon. But if you left and said, "Hey, I don't want to podcast with you anymore," and you tried to start your own Nerds at Night show, I could interject and say, "No, I'm the creator of Nerds at Night." Well, Adam versus Adam's a show. If it's yes, you think of it differently on YouTube, but with the way a lot of these media companies run, they hammer down stuff that was developed under even as a contractor, your time with them. So you have this wonder.
There could be some content changes, maybe whether it be simple rebrands or they just do some new ideas.
Right.
There's always options that
Now,
even if they don't do these things under these titles, they can still find ways to do this. They can still just do versus series,
right?
And it's just their general people together.
But again, that's it, and this all ties back into wrestling because it reminds me of your wrestling in WWE is Fireheart 47, and you quit and go to WCW, and all of a sudden it's here is the Fireman or the Fireman, Bret Hart, because they can't use Fireheart 47 because I copyrighted it as, and this is we could spend all night.
That is an entire that all depends on how licensing issues and who does what.
And the idea that comes back to, and this is what I was getting to, is what world are we in right now on services like YouTube or even our podcasting network like Spreaker? What is considered their intellectual property versus the intellectual property of people creating it, even if they were contractually creating it for them. And wrestling's gone through certain...
It all kind of goes down into the fine print, I'd say.
Well, I guess, but you got to stop and think. Every WWE contract that's ever been written says if we create the character for you, we own it. And yet Steve Austin was able to sue and get most of the rights to the Steve Austin name because it was developed while he was in, the Stone Cold Steve Austin part of it was developed in WWE, even though he'd been Steve Austin before. So there's a lot of things. Warrior sued for his name. People have changed their name legally to, China. Joni Laurer changed her name to China to be able to use the China name. So, and I don't think the What Culture guys are ever do anything like that, but as it's becoming more and more clear they're going to strike out on their own, this could be sort of a very interesting look at what do you do when a channel you helped build, either you choose to leave or they say, hey, we don't got room for you anymore. What are they going to be able to get away with taking with them? Where's YouTube going to fall on this? And such like that. And I think that's a pretty good place to leave this off. Just keep an eye out. Oh, one last thing. If you're one of those people who immediately went to comment and is like, I hate this place now, and oh my God, I'm going to unsubscribe, yet you never did, and you're still commenting negative stuff, stop it. If you don't want to try the new people they're going to replace them with and the new content they come up with, I still watch What Culture videos.
I'm kind of just waiting to see how things go, because I still think...
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong.
I still think things are shaking out. They're getting out the backlogs of videos, because obviously they do these things in advance. So, like maybe not like months, but still there's a stock.
Right.
So obviously they're going to file these out while they're getting themselves out. I'm kind of waiting to see how things develop once they're out.
Well, that's fine, but you're going a step ahead. I'm just talking about the people who,
right.
If you want to unsubscribe, but don't be that guy who's trying to tell all of his ex-girlfriend's friends about how over her she is, and yet he won't shut up about her. Just
exactly.
If you're actually done with What Culture, be done with What Culture. Don't, because I still love Simon Miller. I still love Ben Potter, and I mean, you got to remember, everybody else on that channel who appears on screen are the same level of people that the 5 guys who left were. So you can't attack them for still being there just because guys you liked left. They're not the ones who pulled the trigger. They're not the ones who made the decision whether or created the environment where that decision had to be made. So don't attack them. Keep that in mind going forward. And
yeah.
I think that's a good place to stop, because I'm starting to get real tired. So for Nerds of Night Gaming, I'm Kid Thunder DJ.
I'm 447.
All right, have a good night.